My Legal Club provides full legal support when you require it. Enjoy savings and rewards all year round when you don't. You do not need to be a member of My Legal Club to benefit from free legal advice from our highly recommended specialist solicitors. When you or a loved one requires legal advice and a solicitor, we can help you in every area of law. We also offer a unique alternative. Sign up to our free trial and you will receive up to 25% off legal fees, 15% off legal documents, £20 restaurant vouchers for leading UK restaurants, savings and rewards with leading UK brands, a free online will, free dash cam and much, much more. As an example of how we help our members, they have saved on average over £500 plus by using My Legal Club for personal injury claims compared to many solicitors who deduct 25% of your compensation. If you or a loved one needs legal support, contact us at mylegalclub.co.uk for free consultations and no obligation quotes with highly recommended solicitors. Sign up to our free trial to receive all the free discounts and our membership benefits. Welcome to the MLC Show in association with My Legal Club. My name is Sean Rogers. I am your host and I am delighted to be joined by Jimmy Slomka. Jimmy is an MNU certified nutritionist and coach and part owner of Primal Training Club. I would strongly recommend having a look at primaltrainingclub.co.uk, and I'd also give Jimmy a follow on Instagram, which is Jimmy Slomka. There's loads of great content, loads of great ideas and strategies that you can find on there. This is a 4-part series on nutrition. This is episode 2. Last week we did a show on the basics of nutrition, and this week we are entering very dark waters. We are going to examine the NutriBo. Jimmy, I am a sucker for this. I see an advert or someone I know says, hey, did you hear about this? Or Peter was saying he heard about this new thing where you lose loads of weight, turn into an Adonis overnight. You're immune from every single illness and disease. You know, you look like Mo Salah with his top off tomorrow, all this kind of stuff. And interestingly, the other day I heard a lady in the playground saying, I was eavesdropping on a conversation with the other mums. They'd gone to some seminar that was going to be led by a GP. Okay, and he was going to give them some nutritional advice and stuff like this. And then when they turned up, they were actually selling shakes to them, saying that it'll get rid of stress, make the mornings less stressful, lose weight, improve energy levels, all sorts of stuff. Now, I know myself, it's been very easy for me to be taken in previously, and I would consider myself to be reasonably intelligent, and I've fell for tons of crap over the years. But the thing is, it can be dangerous. You know, there's a lot of celebrities at the moment. I've even seen some private doctors endorsing things that, you know, at least appear to be highly over-exaggerated, if not complete bollocks. And you can't blame people for being taken in by this stuff. So when we see and hear whatever is out there now and whatever's out there to follow, what do we do? Should we just ignore all of this and be completely cynical? Do we research it further? What's your advice for whenever any of these things come out? What should people be doing?
Well, I think there's a saying out there which is something like, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And that's kind of how it works with nutrition and supplements and any new fad that comes out on the market. But I think it's also important to clarify what you mean by NutriBo, because a lot of people won't understand that. So it's pseudoscience, and basically pseudoscience is a series of statements or beliefs or practices that are claimed to be scientific and factual, but they actually are incompatible with the scientific method. So when held to account, they just don't stand up. And there's many things out there that can be labelled in that category.
So is that like, I don't know, is that like all the stories you hear of tobacco companies sponsoring sort of research studies and stuff in like the 50s and the 60s about smoking so that people would carry on smoking it?
Well, do you know, I actually don't know anything about that, to be honest. But what I would say is that science does move on. So at some point, you normally need around 10 years worth of data for something to be more conclusive, but science guides us anyway. It's not absolute. So I'm actually unsure about that.
Okay, so what would be your top, NutriBollocks myths that we can burst today? What are people talking about and potentially doing or hearing on the market that people are taking to be a truth, which as far as you're concerned is scientifically bollocks?
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry about all the swearing, by the way, but the show's called NutriBollocks.
Well, you know, crack on, mate. At the end of the day, like, detoxing is a complete myth. You know, these companies that are out there selling detox diet or juice cleanses or, you know, whatever category or label they want to give them, it's absolute, you know, bollocks.
So are you telling me that you can't go out at the weekend and put all sorts in shit and hammer a 48-hour bender and putting some lemon in a drink on a Monday morning is not going to sort you right out? Because I see everyone doing that.
I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there, and I think you could probably throw apple cider vinegar into that category as well, because it's going to do fuck all for your health. So basically, like, you know, detoxing claims to facilitate toxin elimination, but actually these companies can never tell you what toxins they're trying to detoxify you from. And at the end of the day,
why that is.
if you're a healthy person, which most people are, you will have a fully functioning liver and kidneys, which will do all the toxin elimination you need without having to ever worry about a detox diet or a juice cleanse. So yeah, the other one actually out there, and there seems to be companies popping up all the time, alkaline water. Again, alkaline water is a complete myth. The premise is that you can change the pH of your blood and go more alkaline. I
won't name them because again I don't want to be sued. But there is someone that I would actually be a massive fan of from a distance. And I've seen a couple of shows and a couple of things where they are pushing this massively. They have shares and an involvement in a product that sells this kind of stuff. And they are saying things like people have, and I don't know whether you can comment on this, they're saying things like people who have had cancer, people who are in a really, really poor state mentally as well, people who are suffering all sorts of illness and disease, that they've been able to move to these alkaline supplement type things that lowers their pH and that kind of, it stops acid growing tumours and doing all these kind of things, and that basically moving to this is massive for your health, both from a prevention and a cure.
I'm not an expert in cancer, but what I do know is that
pH levels and then
cancer creates its own environment. It's not to do with the food and drink that you're eating, so it would be separate to that. So if your pH is tightly controlled by your body between like 7.35 and 7.45, if it strays outside of that range, you're going to be hospitalized almost immediately. So it's virtually, you cannot change the pH of your blood. Okay, it's impossible. You can change the pH of your urine and your saliva, which is why people are stupidly licking sticks and weeing on sticks to see what the pH of their urine is. But, you know, crack on if that's the kind of life you want to lead.
Yeah, because I've heard something about fish, like some people who eat like loads of fish and stuff like that, they've been panicking about, I don't know whether it's pH or mercury levels or both, but...
Yeah, I'm not sure about pH, but I think if you were consuming like excess amounts of tuna and swordfish, then there is a small risk of mercury toxicity, but like very small. It's not something to worry about, particularly living in the UK.
What about... I was watching, I can't believe I did because it's pretty rubbish now and you should always avoid it, but I stumbled across an episode of Question Time and I felt really, really sorry for this guy. This audience member basically said that he was very, very ill, and, you know, utmost sympathy for him, and he made a point of blaming a particular brand who offer a diet fizzy drink, okay, and he was adamant that that was the cause. And when you Google it, you can see plenty out there that people say that having some of these diet fizzy drinks in the main, you'll see a lot of people saying that they think that contributes to cancer and illnesses and things like this. I'm interested in what's your opinion on that.
So I'm guessing that you're talking about aspartame, which would be the sweetener in these fizzy drinks. There's actually been thousands of studies on aspartame. It's completely safe for human consumption. So when you look at like something like a lot of people like yourself,
aren't there? There are a lot of people who will go move to a diet.
Well, like if you
because of the calories.
Let's say you were consuming, I don't know, 4 or 5 cans of high sugar
diet fizzy pop,
Coca-Cola. Let's say right, Coca-Cola a week. Okay, you could create a calorie deficit just by switching that Coke to Diet Coke.
Yeah,
so immediately you've gone to 0 calories from those drinks. Yeah. If that was the only swap that you did, which is a non-tracking method, you could improve your health because you're going to get weight loss, and you're consuming less added sugars. but you're also consuming less calories. But actually aspartame, so with any additive or chemical, if you want to call it, in the food supply, it's rigorously tested. So we're talking about like the amounts that you get in your diet would be like 1 part per billionth. We're not talking about something that's actually at a toxic level. It's completely safe for your consumption, repeatedly. So in one sitting, if you wanted to get sort of toxic from aspartame, you probably have to consume something like, I don't know, 50 or 60 cans of Diet Coke in one sitting.
Is that all? Okay. That's not a gauntlet, by the way, hitting the floor. That's not a challenge.
But I think sometimes, though, a lot of people are freaked out by the chemicals in food when actually this comes down to an education level. Like each chemical will have what's called an ED50, which is like the dangerous level of dose. Okay, so they're way higher than you would ever imagine, like coming anywhere near into contact with you. And there was actually some really interesting research in Denmark, because what they were suggesting is they were trying to look at like the hazard risk of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides that build up in the food supply. And what they came to the conclusion is that your exposure to these things would be the same as having 1 glass of red wine every 7 years.
Wow.
So basically, don't worry about it. It's fine.
I don't want to even envisage my life with 1 glass of wine in 7 years.
With lots of additives is that they're generally associated with some poor quality foods. That's the only consideration you should be making. But yeah, so, let's face it, we'll do a 10-pint session every now and again, won't we? And we'll add to the government's binge drinking statistics, but we care more about, what might be in, like, I don't know, a slice of beef or something. You know what I mean? It just doesn't add up, does it?
The big one I want to get your opinion on. I reckon this made every office do a bit of talking. Even in households, people have talked about this. So you talked a little bit there about, pH, alkaline and everything, but game changers. So for those who don't know, there's a Netflix film about former UFC fighter James Wilkes, who, while recovering from an injury, researches nutrition, travels the world to discuss his findings with elite athletes who follow a plant-based diet. It's been described by critics as being an anti-meat, anti-dairy and pro-vegan film. There's a lot of chatter about meat, dairy and veganism generally, but certainly coming from the show, there's been some suspicion about the people who are on the show. There's some suspicion about ownership of shares and certain products that are being pushed that fit the tone of what the show are trying to achieve. But there are also claims that a plant-based diet helps with alkaline levels, decrease risk of disease, which we've been discussing. This is what I'm coming to this is what we were discussing, in the first part, where I was like, you see these research bits, these things come out, and then you hear counterclaims of, well, hang on a minute, he's got shares in that, she's got an interest in pushing this product, etc. What's your take on game changers in particular, Jimmy, and the issues that it brings up?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's a huge bias towards plant-based protein in that movie, and that's probably generated by the fact that the producers have a multi-million-dollar investment in a plant-based protein company. Logically, that's the way you'd think, like huge bias. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with consuming plant-based proteins, and you can be an extremely healthy vegan, and you can be an extremely unhealthy vegan. Likewise, you could be an extremely healthy omnivore and a very unhealthy omnivore. But coming down to actual quality of protein, I mean, animal protein generally would be considered to be a higher quality protein due to its content. And if somebody's moving or transitioning towards a more plant-based diet for health, then if they were trying to hit a certain amount of protein, they'd probably have to work a little bit harder to get the same amount of protein than they would from animal products. It's just more readily available and a higher quality protein from sort of dairy, meat, fish, etc., eggs. Because
there may be there'll be people who make this decision ethically, but I think there's, from what I was reading, there's a lot of people making this kind of change, not to do with the ethics of it. It's more to do with going, meat is bad, plant is good.
Yeah.
And there are these people saying, if I have a steak, it'll take however many days, weeks, months, whatever to digest. I won't be able to do X, I won't be able to do Y after a steak. So I avoid them now, don't have them.
I mean, these things are just myths, though. I mean, like, it's very, very hard to separate red meat from processed meats in research. And when we're looking at most of the research, they're observational studies. So it requires on people recording a history of what they've done. But what about all the other lifestyle factors that could have to be taken into account? I actually don't think...
Such as what?
I actually don't think that there's a... smoking.
Yeah.
You know, the big one, really. Lack of exercise, stress, poor sleep, other things that people
Alcohol.
consume. Yeah, exactly. But I actually don't think that there's a cause and effect study between red meat and cancer. So people are just... I think if you could separate processed, highly processed meats into...
Give us some examples, sorry. What would highly processed meats be?
It's like sausages, I don't know. Yeah, or something like, really, really like wafer thin sliced ham that's, that sort of stuff. If that's eaten repeatedly, I think there's like a small risk for colorectal cancer. But if we think about the lifetime risk of colorectal cancer anyway, just by being alive, it's 5%.
Right.
Okay, so if you were then to increase your red meat intake, that might jump to 6%. It's very small. I think there's a lot of scaremongering around food, and it doesn't have to be necessary. If we're looking at a more of a, for the environment type thing, then I guess when you look at like beef farming, then yes, it would be beneficial to maybe reduce your intake if you were thinking about the environment.
Yeah, so there's loads of ethical and other decisions.
But it's not really.
If you're saying I am going to make myself healthy by just making a simple change of going, I am now going a plant-based diet.
Yeah, I mean, like you can run into some problems. Like, you could be deficient in some vitamins and minerals, which are important for daily function. So there's a good chance if you went to, plant-based doesn't mean vegan, but first of all, plant-based means, more plant, I guess like, even though I eat meat and fish and eggs and dairy, I would describe my diet as plant-based, because if I look at my dinner plate, there's still plenty of vegetables, starchy carbohydrates, which are plants, and I eat fruit every day, and the size of the portion of the meat on my plate isn't half of my plate, it might be a quarter or a third maximum. So I would say I have a plant-based diet, but I'm not going to lose my shit about eating like more fruit and veg, because I think I do enough.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do, I think deep down. And you don't want to be pressured into something that, might not actually fit your taste and preferences.
Brilliant. I mean, that leads me into supplements. So, wow in capital letters. This is huge business. Ahead of the show, I was looking at a recent report by the Grandview research team. They estimated that the dietary supplements market is worth over $278 billion. That sounds like an opening to The Apprentice, doesn't it, when you're about to get set a task? That's 214 billion sterling. And by 2024, it's going to skyrocket again. Nutritional supplements in the UK, apparently they've been rising for a number of years, with Mintel reporting that 46% of Britons are taking vitamins and supplements on a daily basis. I'm one of them, and to be honest, I'd probably include coffee and caffeine and other supplements in there too. All completely legal and natural, by the way, but all above board, yeah. Now I know people who say, don't even dare look at me until I've had 2 cups of coffees, otherwise I'm not liable for my own actions. So myself personally, I know that, like what you referenced before, young kids, stressful life, busy, everything else that goes with it. In the mornings, I ain't springing out of bed like I used to in the 80s to watch Going Live as, an 8-year-old kid. I need waking up. So, I do, I've spoken with you loads of time over this and made changes, and it's been really beneficial to me. So I use a lot of stuff that I think is fairly, vitamin C as an example. I use vitamin D, which I even had checked with the doctor and everything else. Simple things like that I use in the mornings. What's your advice to people who are saying, well, okay, I'm struggling to eat 5 fruit and veg a day, as an example. I want to take some more vitamins. I want to take some more supplements. Which are the ones that you would say, not being bespoke, but what generally are kind of the okay ones, and which are the ones that you would be a bit like, I think you may be wasting money there generically? Yeah,
like when people say 5 fruit and vegetables, that it does include fruit. So don't think you just have to eat 5 vegetables a day. So like I'm sure most people could find 2 pieces of fruit they enjoy, right? So that would be a good start.
Yeah, what worked for me is I like you. I think me and you were talking about this. Having porridge for your breakfast, but throwing some bananas in it.
Yeah, or some berries on top, or something like that. Like that would be a portion. Of your 5 a day. But it's like, what do we actually need? Because if you looked at the hierarchy of nutrition, you probably find that supplements were the least thing you need. It's supplementary to your nutrition. So once the basics are nailed, so you've got your macronutrients and your micronutrients, total calorie intake, supplements are really like at the very top of like, do we actually even need them? And like you say, I would get tested possibly, certainly for something like vitamin D. Vitamin C you should be able to get from your diet. I wouldn't necessarily be supplementing with that. Other things that people that may be like, I guess, most bang for your buck, I guess. Something like a fish oil, because not many people eat enough oily fish. And there are loads of health benefits to eating omega-3s.
So would that be like cod liver oil? Or?
Well, yeah, an omega-3, yeah, something like that, an omega-3 supplement. And then beyond that, there's not a huge amount that you really need unless you're tested. So you can get the majority from your diet if you're eating a well-balanced diet. So maybe on top of that, I'd throw in some protein powder as a supplement.
Yeah. So there's no real sort of magic supplements or magic pill. You're talking about the real basics here, unless you've been tested and your doctor says, I don't know,
exactly.
you might have an iron deficiency or
exactly.
something.
Yeah. I mean, that's the route I would go down. And most GPs will test you for, I mean, there is a big issue with vitamin D deficiency in the UK. If you think about it, and we talked about work in a previous episode. So get up in the morning, get in your car, drive to work, spend all day without any sunlight, go home. I mean, especially through the winter months, you're probably going to be taking a dip in your vitamin D. So it's probably worth supplementing through the winter months.
I'm a massive believer in modelling and shortcutting certainly for achievement anyway. If there's a shortcut, why wouldn't you take it? But you could argue when it comes to nutrition and eating and living that could be dangerous. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense spoken, and obviously things are subjective to you as an individual. What works for one person might not work for another. So I feel like sometimes you're tiptoeing almost through like a field of, I don't know, broken glass. Let's say you're suffering from inflammation, bad back, joint pain, IBS, things like that. I see a lot of promoted adverts for stuff at the moment saying that they can cure and solve some of these kind of things. If people, you're not a GP or anything like that, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, what should people do if they're listening to this going, well, I think I can take this pill that will get rid of my inflammation, as an example. If I'm suffering with IBS, I do this. Is your advice you just go to your doctor? Do you just believe what you see online and try things? What would your advice be?
I would say it's outside of my scope of practice. Talk about covering my ass there.
So get off the fence, and what would you do?
So basically, but seriously, things like gut health are still an emerging area. So that's why it's so complicated. There could be like a multitude of reasons why somebody has irritable bowel syndrome. And there generally, if you go through your GP, there will be certain procedures and protocols to work through. And maybe you'll end up with following something like a low FODMAP diet as part of the interventions. So there are things that you would follow. I would definitely go down the evidence-based route. So
not following things online.
Exactly. Anything that falls into that pseudoscience bracket of not really being, held up to account by science, I should probably reject that outright.
And that's it for this week. Jimmy, thank you so much. You've been an absolutely amazing guest. Thank you for listening. Remember, if you want any further information, please do get in touch with Jimmy and the team at primaltrainingclub.co.uk. I'd also recommend, again, following Jimmy on Instagram, Jimmy Slomka. On next week's show, we're going to be brainstorming ideas and strategies which fit with the pressures of life in 2020. We're obviously all on a budget. We're all fighting for more time. We need convenience, efficiency, and obviously we want a lifestyle that's not a fad. I think it's a must listen. In the meantime, please share and spread the word about the MLC Show. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please hit us with a 5-star review. Remember to check out the products and services at My Legal Club for you and your family, and stay well, and importantly, take care. The Business Services Club is a unique business-to-business brokerage. When you need a service for your business, or you want to compare your existing business, get in touch for free and no obligation quotes. We have created a specialist panel of commercial partners to support your every business need. We will provide you with free and no obligation quotes via the free-to-access Business Services Club. As an example, you may need EL, PL or professional indemnity insurance quotes, forensic accountants, self-employed bookkeeping, funding, working capital, interest-only lending with no personal guarantees, employment and HR support, web development, training, legal advice, or even online marketing. No matter what you and your business require, we will meet your needs. Free up precious time researching and analysing new or existing outsourced partners via our one-stop business solution. See how we can help you and your business via businessservicesclub.co.uk.